Hello and welcome to Freedom Revamped. If you've been here before, then you know my name is Kourtney. And if you have not, then hi, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Freedom Revamped is a platform dedicated to helping individuals discover freedom, define identity, and pursue purpose. I'm super excited you have joined us here today because we have a very special guest and we are talking about a very special topic. Today we have Melanie Kinchen and we will be discussing taking calculated risks. So let's bring Melanie on.
Hi.
Hey! So I am super excited to have you here today so that we can discuss taking calculated risks. But before we get into that, our guests know that it is tradition that we ask our interviewees how they define freedom.
How do I define freedom? I guess honestly, freedom to me is really that self-expression and allowing yourself to express yourself however you want. Like I'm able to do and say whatever I want because I have that like free mindset. I don't ever feel like I should conform to what society is and what society thinks. So I guess that's how I define freedom.
That's awesome. I think for me, I haven't told my definition in a minute, but to me, freedom is discovering who I am and walking unapologetically in that person, despite of what other people might say or think or tell me that I shouldn't do. It's just knowing my worth and my value and accepting that.
All right.
So with your, yeah. So, with your definition of freedom in mind, how do you practice freedom? We created this question because a lot of people don't know that as human beings, more specifically as African Americans, that we are free. I had someone tell me one time that they didn't want to support my platform because we're quote unquote black people and we don't know what freedom is. So I was like, okay, yes. So
Look.
I had to rephrase it and say, okay, well, how do you practice freedom? Like, how do you create freedom internally?
I think how I practice it is I've become very spiritual, especially over quarantine. And I was before, but I feel like net quarantine just allowed me to like dig deeper. And meditation and just journaling has allowed me to practice freedom because again, like especially when I journal, like I'm allowed to just write whatever, like that is like just coming to my mind that just spills on the paper. So I feel like that allows me to like practice freedom as well as like again like I'm just someone like I just if I want to say something I'm going to say it whether that's on social media in person or anything. So I think again just me being me and that allows me to like again like have that expressive like it allowed me to express myself and not like have society think that and conform me to like what they talk about is or what they say is right and what is wrong has allowed me again to like be free and like practice that freedom.
I love that. I definitely think I use my personal platform outside of Freedom Revamp to practice freedom because on my personal pages I sort of dive deeper into who I am and express whatever I'm going through. So I definitely think that that's an amazing way to practice freedom. But we're going to get into the actual topic of today, which is once again taking calculated risks. And you actually gave me a list of topics that you would want to discuss, and this was one of them. I haven't heard anyone, talk about this before, so I was very interested. So I want to know, what does taking calculated risk mean to you?
So taking calculated risks to me means being like being riskful but also like still not just jumping into anything and just like I definitely have like my spontaneous moments, but I also when I like say like I take calculated risks, I do that in the sense of I want to do something risky or there's something I want to do and I'm like kind of like a little bit hesitant on it because I don't know what the outcome is going to be. So I kind of like do the pros and cons of it and like just calculate. I move into that risk slowly instead of just
Mhm.
jumping all in. Like I don't jump in with both feet. Like I do one foot at a time to see and test the waters.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And now that you've explained it, I definitely think I'm a calculated risk taker because it's like you want to dive into new things, but also you want to make sure that it's the right move, if that's how you were
Right.
explaining it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I definitely think I'm a calculated risk taker
Yeah.
then. So, in your experience, what have you learned are the pros and cons of taking calculated risks? Because we know that pretty much everything we do has a pro and has a con to it. So, what do you think are the pros and cons of that?
I think the pros of it is that I am being like as a little bit more adventurous and being open to like different possibilities and outcomes of whatever risk that I take. And the cons are I don't know what is going to happen at the end of that, like
Mm,
that risk or end of that tunnel situation. So that does kind of sometimes, especially someone like me, I have anxiety, so sometimes it does have me like kind of like worrisome, and it's like I'm like, oh my god. So like I think also too for me with the taking the calculated risk is that I do kind of talk it through. Talk it through with myself, but then I also kind of talk it through with like my therapist, because it's like if I don't and I just keep thinking about it, then I'm never gonna do it.
right. Okay. I can see that. And I think the thing about risk is, I know you said this was a con that you don't know the outcome, but honestly, if you knew the outcome of it, it probably wouldn't be a risk because it's like you're going
Right,
into something knowing, whereas a risk is
right.
like you don't know at all. So, but I think in my experience, the pros are definitely, well, you listed it as a con, but I think that kind of is a pro to it because it gives me the ability to honestly practice freedom. It gives me the ability to discover more about myself and my limits and my boundaries. So I think that's what I like about taking risks is because it helps
Mhm.
me learn more about what I like and what I don't like.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think, when I put it as a con and I think of the outcome, I think, in that negative sense, I don't know with like, with the risk, it might have like a negative outcome. I think
Mhm.
that's why I put it as a con, because I think, again, like someone with anxiety and just in general, like you just never know when you do a risk, like if it's going to be a negative thing or like a positive
Yeah.
thing.
True, I 100% agree. So, with that in mind, you said that with taking calculated risk, you sort of have to think about it a little bit before you step out into that risk. So, can you go a little bit deeper into the steps you take before taking calculated risk?
Like I said, like I ponder a lot on like, the calculated risks that I'm gonna do. Like I definitely, like I said, like especially now that I journal so much, like I definitely write it down, and I, again list like the pros and cons, and I really try to like put myself in every different situation that the risk can take me.
Mhm.
So, I guess for instance, like a big thing that I did, especially like during quarantine, was that I didn't go back when my job, like I got furloughed and then like my job went back to work. I didn't go back to work. One for like medical reasons. But then like once my doctor like allowed me to go back to work, I didn't go because I before the pandemic, I was like, all right, like I need to get out of here. I want to do my own thing. There's so many things I want to do, and I just don't feel like I'm not doing it, and it's like driving me crazy, and I'm like super upset. So like, during quarantine, obviously we had mad time to like be at home and be with our thoughts, and I just really started like writing down like, okay, like if I do this entrepreneurship thing, like what directions am I gonna go? Like what's gonna happen, like what's like the negative of it, what's the positive of it. And there's definitely been some negatives, but there's been way more positives that outweigh the negatives, and like that's kind of like the steps that I take. I really just try to put myself in every like different situation that this risk can take me.
I agree. And I think that entrepreneurship is definitely a huge risk, especially if you're like going to do what a lot of people did during the pandemic, which is like, say, after this, I'm not even going back to my full-time job. So
Mhm.
I can understand that. I mean, I jumped straight into entrepreneurship out of high school. So I
Okay.
was like, my mom was like, if that's something you want to do, then, we're here to support. Just make sure
Mhm.
it's worth it. And that
Right.
is actually the next question I have for you is how do you know when the risk is worth taking?
I think, with just like I said about like diving into entrepreneurship from full time, I knew it was worth it because I'm just such a nomadic spirit. And I just felt like my job, well, one, it was like a very toxic work environment, but two, it was just like, I need to be able to do what I want to do. Like, it's just, and I can listen to constructive criticism. I can also work with other people. That's never a problem. But it's like when I feel like my opinions are not being heard, or it's like you don't even want to discuss what's going on, that's when I'm like, okay, I have an issue. Like I need to like be my own boss and be my own person. So I feel like I don't know, it's just like it's something I feel like it's like, a gut thing. It's like a gut feeling that I was just like, I got to do this. And even with any other risk that I've taken, even with like my business and doing the entrepreneurship, there's been so many things that I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I should really do this. I don't know if I should put my money into this. And, again, there's been some hit and misses, but the hits have outweighed the misses. And so it's just something that you really have to just put full force and also have a support system. I think that's another thing too. Is like I have a support system that especially like my friends, like when I tell them anything about like my business and what I think I'm gonna do, they're like super supportive like the whole way. Like I've had friends come and help me with like my pop-up shops and so many other different things. That's just like I think a support system is also like very helpful.
I actually agree that a support system is like it makes such a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people who like start their businesses or write their books or whatever it is, and they don't have that support system, and they honestly still succeed. It just might take a little bit longer, or it might be a little bit more stressful because for those of us who do have that support system, when we're feeling stressed out or when we're feeling like giving up, then those people are there to let us know, hey, remember the end goal, remember that where you
Right.
are now is going to be much worth it in the end. But honestly, for me, it also has to be an internal thing because
Mhm.
people can tell me all day, don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. But if I want to give up,
Right.
then I'm not all of that out. So honestly, it's just really encouraging myself and looking at the end goal and where I want my business or my book or whatever it is to be in the end. So I would
Right.
agree with that for sure. So, since this is all about personal experience and we really can't speak on what other people have gone through, I want you to share an experience when a calculated risk did not go in your favor and then share one when it did go in your favor.
Okay. So I think something that didn't go in my favor um was recently. So when I first started the entrepreneurship, I was gonna do a showroom, which is like doing wholesale for like designers and brands and things like that. And that was it. That's what I was gonna do. That was my business plan. I literally did a whole like 20-page business plan. I had a mentor, everything. And that's like one of the big reasons that I was like, all right, like this is what's gonna help me, like this is what I'm doing. And I started doing it and it just wasn't, I don't know if I wasn't into it or it just, I like the people that I like, designers I was working with or whatever, it wasn't working. And I'm just like, all right, like I need to figure something out because I now like don't have a job, so I need like to like do something. So it didn't end up working out, and I ended up pivoting into like now media. So I do more like marketing, advertising, my blog, and all that stuff. Um, and that I'm seeing way more numbers, and it's like I just pivoted like honestly like the beginning of last week. So that was like a calculated risk that I thought because I had my business plan, I had a mentor that I thought was just like everything was gonna like work out by like September, which was like fashion week and all these things, and it didn't. Something that is in my favor, like a calculated risk, is the whole, like I said, like the pivoting to media and really focusing more on my blog and my podcast has definitely opened way more doors. It's also helped me to, meet more people, meet new people, and be able to make more connections. And I think that's what I always wanted. And I somehow thought that the showroom would do that. But it's really kind of, it's not hard to make connections in fashion, but I definitely feel like it's easier to make connections in the whole media thing because I'm talking about different things on my blog and my podcast that are also like personal to me. So it's like I can connect with it more than just like selling you clothes.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Me, I'm only 19 for those of you who didn't know, so I haven't taken too many risks that, um, well, I've had risks that didn't work out in my favor, but none of them were really quote unquote life altering.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely say one that has been working out in my favor was actually starting this platform simply because I was 17 when I started it, and I was like, nobody's gonna listen, but I'm gonna try this anyway for me, if not for anybody else.
Right.
And so, it's not even about like how many people have been viewing it and tuning in, even though for me, sometimes I do get caught up in that. But I've made some amazing connections and mentors through
Exactly.
starting this platform. Most of the people I interview are older than me, and they have like so much wisdom, and just meeting them and making connections that are going to like go way past even if this platform doesn't exist in the future is has been a calculated risk that has worked out in my favor because it's not even what I expected to happen when starting this. So I think that would be my example for sure.
That's a good one, and that's good that like you just like got out of like high school, and like you're able to like start this and like be able again like you said like just take that like risk. And again, like I feel like you're someone that it is calculated because I know like almost like we have to like plan everything, and it's like I think that's again where calculated risk comes is like we're planning like our months ahead, we're planning like our years ahead because if we didn't we would just be in like a whole like scramble or like a whole
Yeah.
like kind of like different direction.
Yeah. And that's something I'm learning because when I first started the platform, I we were not consistent at all. It would be like obviously people didn't really know who we were as a platform, so when reaching out to interview people, it would be like scattered here and there, so I would have to wait for people to reply because can't post interviews if I don't have any interviews to post,
Right.
you know. But I definitely think it was worth it, and just learning how it all works and learning actual strategies to it is has been like definitely altering the direction of the platform for sure. So I do want to ask our last question is why is it important that we take the road less traveled, aka taking risks?
I think it's there is moments where I have such a good outcome by taking like calculated risks because again like if I didn't like pivot into this like now more media based setting and like really focusing on my blog and stuff like that, I wouldn't be happy. I feel like the showroom thing was just because, like, okay, I live in New York. I've been doing fashion since college. It's what I know. Everyone always tells me how good I am at it. So it's like I might as well just like stay into it. But it's like I've always wanted to like, be in like PR and like I ended up getting my second degree in advertising and marketing. So it was like, okay, like let's do this media thing. Like let's do this blog and this podcast. Like again, like you said, like it wasn't people didn't know who I was, and then like I've been ended up getting like great people for like to guest and like be on my like show and all these things, and it's like I'm making such great connections. Like someone I interviewed yesterday, like we just clicked. Like you'll hear it on the episode how we just clicked, and it's just like I have to be open season. I've been wanting to make new connections with people, and I would have never done that if I never took this risk.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. It's just like I've had interviews like that where it's like you're talking to the guests and it seems like you've known each other like way past this, even though you've
Mm-hmm.
only connected via email or DM. And I think that's the beautiful thing
Right.
about like humans in general, even though humans, we aren't perfect at times, but just meeting people, just meeting people that we can like connect with, and it's like, wow, it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. But I think it's important to take the road less traveled or take risks because like I said earlier, you learn things about yourself that you didn't know existed. You learn that there are certain boundaries that you need to set. You learn that there are things you can do that you didn't know you could do. You meet new people, and I think it's just honestly, life wouldn't be quote unquote worth living if we didn't take risks because it would just be boring.
I agree, and yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like you would never I think I just also would have never learned like how far I could go, like if I never like took these risks. Like I would have never like if I never put myself in these positions, I would have never been like, oh wow, I actually do like connecting with people. Oh, I actually do like this. Or okay, now I don't like this, like kind of thing. I think,
Mhm.
being put, I think society like continues to like keep us in a bubble and be like, oh, like if you've been doing this, like you just need to like stick with it. Like you don't and I'm just
Yeah.
like I'm a creative person. Like I need to be expressive. And I think that's another reason why I do take a little bit more risk is because like I'm just such an expressive person and like that creativity that's going on through my mind. It's just like I need to like see it and see it through. So it's like
Yeah.
sometimes I have to like make different jumps into different things.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that a lot of times the things that we are scared to do or the risks we are afraid to take are really the ones that are worth it in the end because like we wouldn't have that much fear or anxiety if it wasn't worth it, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
So yeah. So I really want to thank you. That was everything I had for today, but I want to thank you so much for joining us here at Freedom Revamp. It
Yes.
has been such a pleasure having you. And before we log off, please tell the people how they can keep up with all that you have going on.
Yeah, so definitely, if you guys want to reach out to me, you can on my Instagram, What's Next Mel. I also have my blog, what'snextmel.com, and podcast, What's Next Mel, which is on all streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. So you can definitely connect with me on all those things. And if you want to like comment, question, or inquiry me, you can just email me at what'snextmel@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again for joining us. And thank you to all of our viewers who have tuned in. As always, continue to practice freedom.